Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Iyori Folari. Well, okay, I hope you had a great weekend. I'm sure of it. And my guest this morning, Mr. Yemi Makwadirun and Alhaji Hassan Abdul Aziz Sani. Yemi is a strategy and governance expert, and Hassan is an opinion molder and communications professional. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program.
Thank you for
I don't know. Well, Yemi, I know that it's not into your nature to say, I told you so. But indeed, last week when we were talking about the NNPC and the whole hullabaloo about 25 billion naira contracts inappropriately awarded or executed, or, you know, you had said on the program that, hang on, guys, in spite of the wide coverage of 25 billion naira, it doesn't work out. Indeed, now that Laolu Akonde of the Vice President's office has spoken and said that it's a malicious figure and he doesn't know how it came about. It was probably derived from a tweet that he had made, but even so, it's malicious because there's nothing you look at in Dr. Kachiku Ibe's so-called leaked memo that leads to 25 billion.
Very well. Well, like you said, I don't want to sound unnecessarily triumphal this morning. But truth be told that the challenge we have in Nigeria now is that we have a system, we have a terrain that is highly politicized. And we have a lot of people out there who are into fault finding. And I hate to use this derogatory description of the issue. Somebody says it's a way of the police. We have the police approach. The first person to complain seems to have the coverage and the traction, and people actually find it difficult or maybe even unnecessary to dig and find out exactly what are the facts. If you read jointly the memo of Ibe Kachuku and the initial response of the NNPC, you will discover that from both the memo and the response, there were actually no $25 billion contract. And unfortunately, the way the fault finders, who incidentally, I mean, permit me to be this frank this morning, who are actually looking at getting at the president. They have made Kachiko to look bad. I told you that ordinarily, but for the fact that it has to do with the public sector and the high-wired politics, what is happening between the chairman of the board of the NNPC and the chief executive in a normal corporate environment is actually a governance issue, which people, organizations grapple with all the time. Many times you have chief executive officers, getting into some form of boardroom, conflict with the chairman. The chief executive is the chief executive. He is both the head of the executive management and a member of the governing board or the board of directors of any organization. So he wears two caps. And so a lot of people concede to the CEO because he knows the day-to-day running. All the board bothers about is to set broad policies and guidelines. And of course, they meet regularly to review what has been done. So if any line has been crossed, it is the duty of the board to call the chief executive, to order. So in this case, I think it's little more than a personality clash.
Because as the explanation,
the Minister of State and the Chief Executive Officer of
but not occasioned by the Minister of State, because that was the mischievous part. That's
what I'm saying. That
not occasioned by
the Minister of State is now being made to look bad.
Exactly.
When he had actually also come out to say, no, I have not, insinuated that there is any form of fraud going on. It's all about governance, which is the exact word that I used here, last week. To some people, he's now recanting. Whereas, if you actually look at the memo, it raised 3 issues.
Okay.
The issue of procedure, the issue of appointment without, confining with the board, and then perhaps maybe overbearing management posture.
And as far as this whole 25 billion naira hoax, because that is what it has become, it was, whatever it was, it couldn't have been more than what has been stated, which is that it was a sort of a shortlisting process at the end of the day for what can be done subject to due process. But as you noted, Alhaji Hassan, this phantom probably has been laid to rest. If not, we'll know very shortly. It wasn't the only subject of the whole contestation. There was the whole matter of inappropriate appointments and generally carrying on without recourse to the minister. Those aspects have not been responded to. What do you think? As should be? Or, it's good you've explained this, but you've not spoken on the other ones. Or maybe that was not the business of the spokesperson for the Vice President's office.
You know what, Mr. Ori? Let me remind us of something. We are just getting out of a government that is bedridden with monumental fraud. So when people are hearing $25 billion, it's never a new thing to them, because that was the in thing in the previous government. But what is very clear, all these $25 billion, from where? Who awarded? For what?
Yeah, but the lie has not been given to that.
No, the issue is this. They have let the cat out of the bag. It's like you label somebody an armed robber, and you will now later come to give him a befitting burial. You understand? And the information is so unfair. It's very, very unfair to the GMD of NNPC. The leaked information. Let us take it from there. The issue is this. Mr. Yomi Makpaderum has said it all.
Yemi?
Yes, he said it all by saying it's much more a personality clash. Let us go down history lane of history. Let us remember that the present Minister of State was formerly a minister and GMD. So you can see the clash there. I'm not here to castigate any one of them. I'm just here to put things straight for us to know. Even the issue of this contract, this sale over, is much more a commercial transaction. Commercial transaction in which the money goes to Federation account, not to NNPC. And it has been there for a very long time. Right from time of Amu, to Festus Mariho, to Chamberlain Oyibo, to Arid Adams, to Obaseki, and Co.
Talking of a crude term contract.
You understand?
And
that one is the right. The person that signed the contract, the transaction, not contract, the transaction is the GMD. Even he, Kachuku, signed it when he was the GMD of NNPC. So what is very clear, in the whole issue, people knew nothing about the procedures. And they should get to know. I saw many people coming on air saying Mr. President should even come out and talk about this. Please, for God's sake, how do you expect Mr. President to dabble into an issue between GMD and Minister of State? And the same people saying that are the same people that you say Mr. President is partisan. The same people, they will call for more things, because there is no way you can convince a negative-minded person.
The spokesperson for the Vice President's office attributes it all to not just mischief, but malicious mischief.
It's malicious.
You know.
But you do know what is happening. You see, when things...
Maybe we shouldn't put too fine a point on it, because it has been stated. But how about the other aspects that
we'll all come back to that. Let us clarify this.
This has been clarified.
This has been
clarified.
Let me say it. I'm not saying it for you. Do you know why? It has been clarified to you. You understand?
But Yemi spends a lot of time on it.
I know.
You know,
I know.
You have also done as much.
I know.
But
I know.
You still want to underline it a bit more.
Let me underline it.
Okay.
You see, there was an approval given. There was an approval given by Public Procurement Act of 2009 for them to set up tenders board in NNPC. And in each and every tenders board has its own level of or limit of approvals. You have NTB, you have GEC, you have DESCOM, you have NESCOM, you have DIVCOM. All these ones are geared towards making the petroleum industry to achieve its maximum objectives. And all this one cannot go to the Ministerial Tenders Board. It cannot go to the Board of Directors. Why? Because we, the same Nigerians, will be the one complaining that there's a long queue somewhere.
Okay, but it has been said that it was for some reason, Laolu Akonde said he just was at a loss that sections of the press now reported the story that is now being seen as, quite frankly, erroneous at the very best and mischievous at the worst. But he doesn't know where that is coming from. So I think that really can be laid to rest to the extent that the GMD, in the light of all that you have said, you know, has been hard done by.
Let the people know that there was no fraud.
Yes, yes, that much is clear. In fact, according to Laolu Akonde, he said that, I'm quoting him now, say, if you take from the memo the crude term contract and the direct sale, direct purchase, DSDP agreements, for instance, he says these are little more than a shortlisting process that people would then go into subject to due process exercises and all of that. So I just thought that we shouldn't gloss over it, because when we won yesterday, last week, and as it happened, just by chance, Yemi, who was on that program and who sounded the alarm first, but then he was more or less by the content of the press say, look, but Yemi, look at what the press is saying. This one is saying it. All the papers were saying it. We even had some tables. So we thought that it's best to, and we were just fortunate that Yemi just happened to be on again today, and he has underlined it, and you have now double underlined it.
What do you expect from papers?
Exactly.
You can't
believe what
the papers send by sending the mouth wagging. You understand? There's what they call lead politics, or headline politics.
We have heard that. Let's look at other aspects of.
Let us go to the other aspect of the appointment and what have you.
Because these have not been spoken about yet. Maybe I should go to Yemi so that since both of you decided to have the first, to really speak about this. The other parts of the memo of the complaint, shall we say, of the Minister of State haven't been addressed because this whole non-event, non-issue, that was attempted to be turned into an issue, sort of took center stage. But there are also those other ones. What do you think is that hasn't been spoken upon?
And those other ones are the real issues, actually.
Those are the real issues.
Yes, and I want to just start by saying that I think with benefit of hindsight, the Minister of State would wish he didn't write that memo.
That was leaked.
That was leaked. If there wasn't any memo in the first place, nothing would have been leaked. Now, going back to the real issues, which are the issues he wants to call attention to? You see, one of the holy books says that, all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. The chief executive of any organization, in this case, the group managing director of the NNPC, may wield so much powers, but you are expected actually to exercise powers with a high degree of caution and responsibility. Now, when you have a chairman, call him even a titular chairman, non-executive chairman, the expectation is that you run certain things through him, just as a means of carrying him along. And I think there is a pettiness also that I could read into the whole issue. Like Alhaji said, these are two guys, very brilliant. And I think somebody said, when you put a PhD in law, first class in law, and then the other one, first class in engineering, PhD in engineering, and you put them in the same room, you expect that room to be hot. Now, you do not expect that these two gentlemen will work seamlessly with the kind of track, I mean, the pedigree behind the two of them, and the different, intersections that they have had to cross in the past. There was a point in time when the current Minister of State was actually reporting to Baru more or less as a regulator when he was in ExxonMobil, and Baru was executive of any organization, in this case, the group managing director of the NNPC, may wield so much powers, but you are expected actually to exercise powers with a high degree of caution and responsibility. Now, when you have a chairman, call him even a titular chairman, non-executive chairman, the expectation is that you run certain things through him, just as a means of carrying him along. And I think there is a pettiness also that I could read into the whole issue. Like Alhaji said, these are two guys, very brilliant, and I think somebody said when you put a PhD in law, first class in law, and then the other one, first class in engineering, PhD in engineering, and you put them in the same room, you expect that room to be hot. Now, you do not expect that these two gentlemen will work seamlessly with the kind of track, I mean, the pedigree behind the two of them, and the different, intersections that they have had to cross in the past. There was a point in time when the current Minister of State was actually reporting to Baru more or less as a regulator when he was in ExxonMobil, and Baru was the MD of Napiers. At another point, the current minister became the GMD, and then Baru was still executive director. So table turned. And then at the point, the current minister combined those two offices, and that made him in fact, I'm not sure it has happened in the history of Nigeria, where you have the Minister of Petroleum, Minister of Civil Petroleum, also doubling as the group managing director of the NNPC. Okay, and so all of that...
I got to go on a break now. It's a fine place to leave it. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. And the whole brouhaha in the NNPC, what, is it fizzing out, or is there still substance left? Is there any meat on that particular bone anymore? We've taken care of what is now being seen as a bogus figure of $25 billion US. But the other issues, well, Yemi gave us a very, very interesting analysis of it, the shifting sands of management and seniority between the two, titans. But your perspective on this?
My own can never be so different or much different between mine and his, because what we saw here playing out is an issue of somebody being overseer, and miraculously somebody got appointed.
That's the miracle you're talking about.
And what we are seeing now is this. The NAPIMs are the overseers of all the IOCs, international oil companies.
When is NAPIMs?
National Petroleum Investment Management Services. The GGM then was Kabiru Baru. And Kachuku do come not even directly with the team of the MD of ExxonMobil to NAPIMS. And by God's grace, this man became the minister and also the head of the most powerful parastatal in petroleum sector of the country. You know what? All these guys are fine gentlemen.
So you're saying this is the source
No,
of tension?
not even the source.
Of tension.
The issue is this. The issue is very clear. You see, this guy, let me put it straight here. It has never happened in the history of Nigeria where somebody would be made a minister and head of a parastatal. You understand? So he got to know what is there, and for him, for that one to be taken away from him is painful enough for him to react the way he is reacting now. I'm not here to cast aspersion at Kachukwu. I'm just here to let the public know about the antecedents. When Kachukwu was made the GMD, Kabiru Mekantibaru was the executive director under Kachukwu. And this guy came from the system. He knows the system very well. He's a technocrat. You understand? And even Kachukwu himself is a legal expert from ExxonMobil. You can see where a situation whereby two captains are mounting a ship. You understand? But what is
both of them knowledgeable in the runnings
and for them to know what is inside. You see, the issue is this. I thank God they have now realized whatsoever and now putting the country above themselves.
Okay, one moment. Mr. Latunji has called in from London. Good morning. Mr. Latunji in London. So did we. We also heard Bobo Katon Salawabe, you know. Good morning, Mr. Latunji in London. Hello. You're on air right now. Please go ahead.
Okay. Right. Good morning, Mr. Jolly Folani.
Good morning.
Good morning to the two gentlemen in the studio.
Thank you for calling in.
Much I have respect for Madam Hassan Soni.
Please continue.
I am surprised the way he handled this matter this morning. I have respect for him for his past contributions on all this program. But his contribution this morning is nothing to write home about. I am surprised he didn't see anything wrong in what the GMD did. Might be because they are from the same part of the country where they dictate the pace of what goes on in Nigeria.
How do you mean in particular?
What we are doing.
What is it that you take exception to?
Nigeria did not belong to the northern part of the country.
Mr. Latunji, could you point to what you take exception to?
What I'm saying is that Hassan did not see anything wrong in the procedure adopted by Mekanti Baru.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Latunji, he didn't say at any point in time anything about the methodology of either of the gentlemen. He hasn't commented on the methodology. What, to my knowledge, and you were listening, everybody was listening, he has sought to do is to try and analyze and explain from his own understanding the dynamics that is going on. But right of response in case you want it.
Yeah. Mr. Latunji, I'm not biased about this. I'm just trying to put things straight. Straight in the sense that I made it clear to you from the beginning, to all the viewers, that there was this PPA Act that empowers NNPC to set up tenders board, and each one with its own limit of awarding contracts. And Kachukwu was one of the beneficiaries. All the GMDs were beneficiaries of it. So I did not say anything. There's nothing sentimental about it.
I think you also, what you were saying was...
No, they are all beneficiaries of that procurement act to work on it.
Okay. Apparently they've all activated it.
They have worked with it. Not personally benefiting.
For what it is.
Yes, not personally benefiting. They all implemented it as stated by the Public Procurement Act.
Okay. Mr. George, good morning and thank you for holding on, sir.
Uncle Yori, good morning.
Thank you for calling in. Good morning.
And good morning to the panel.
Good morning.
Uncle Yori, can you recall when this issue came up, I called in and my My statement was that Dr. Ibe Kachuku did not display assertiveness in leadership. That I blamed him that instead of writing such a letter, he ought to have queried the GMD, and if he discovered that such a contract was actually awarded, cancel it, that it is the GMD that should be complaining about him, not he complaining about his subordinate. I think that is what is, is coming out now. Because there are two cases in point. One, the minister wrote a letter. Is he saying that he's not the one that wrote that letter? Because I read it, where he itemized the contracts that were allegedly awarded. And then I also read the statement issued by the GMD's media man, where he said that the minister has no duty to seek permission from the minister to award such contracts. I did both deny that these statements were not made. The issue at stake, Uncle Yori, is that there is insubordination. None of them had talked about contract sum. I knew from the beginning that there was no fraud. But the issue of insubordination is still there, and that is what needs to be resolved. The minister must be given his due powers and recognition, and the GMD should also learn to respect his superior. That is the issue at stake. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. George, for calling in.
Well, you see, when you are talking at this level, there are certain terminologies that may not be appropriate. They may not be tenable. They may sound reasonable. When you use insubordination, you see, at that executive level, that word doesn't really belong there. It belongs to the line, management thing. Mm-hmm. Because the truth really, because if you really want to go into this, it might be very difficult to actually fault the GMD of the NNPC. To be very, very difficult to fault him legally. And that is why procedurally, it does appear to me that the group managing director of the NNPC had not flouted any rules procedurally. Okay. But in terms of practice, mm-hmm. You see, your board they are not just there as decoratives.
But you have layers of authority, right?
And I know that this is the complexity. He talked about querying it. I mean, Mr. George talked about querying the group managing director of the NNPC. Mm-hmm. You can't. It's like asking the Minister of Finance to query the CBN governor.
Okay, Reverend Dominic, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, Reverend Dominic. Wait.
There's a delay in the voice here.
Okay.
Yori, honestly, I'm a little bit disappointed with the two guests there. Intellectuals I used to listen before. But this morning, I'm quite disappointed. Do you know the reason?
Tell us.
An intellectual person like Minister of State, who wrote this memo, he has not denied it, he has stood by it. But the way they turn it around against us, who are their supporters now, is shameful. We are the ones people are calling names here as we take away PDP east and bring the bigger team. Now, why is supporting with their guests? Nobody wants to ask a question. Why should an intellectual like Okachuku stood up, write this letter, and lift it by himself, to my own understanding, to put this nation, which already has a bad name, in a terrible state? International community are watching us. If I'm the one who made the allegation, it will be nonsense. You need to make the allegation, neither here or there. But this Kachuku made this allegation, I have this on my face here, I'm reading on as you are doing that argument. What this man has in mind? Nobody is talking about it now. They are telling us it's nonsense. It doesn't exist. And we intellectuals are following it. When will Nigerians be smart enough to say enough is enough? Please,
but Dominic, Dominic,
people say this memo is no more what is it. He is supposed to resign. He has put Nigeria in the bad shape.
No.
He has put his government in the bad shape.
Dominic, if you understand it, they are saying what is being said now by the Vice President's spokesperson is that the whole matter of $25 billion worth of contract just came out of nowhere, out of the air, because if you study the minister's memo, it's not anywhere in there. It's not a matter of it being in there and now denying it. No, 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 no. He's saying that it was maliciously. So the allegation goes from the ministers, Mr. Laolu Akode, that was, it just was manufactured out of thin air, and he called it malicious. So I hope you
know, sir, I feel for Mr. Ibe Kachiku, because people are really angry that, oh, it's like we've just been fighting a wrong cause.
Okay, I've got to go.
I think that's where the anger is.
That is it. Let me come back to that. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Now, this is getting to be sort of one kind, in the sense that, take Reverend Dominic calling in, and I think his anger was that, look, what are you trying to make a mess of this whole scenario, this whole thing? Because here we are, you know, getting hot under the collar about this whole matter. And are you now saying that there's nothing to it? Well, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that, look, going by the facts of the case, Mr. Ibe, Dr. Kachiku Ibe, he never put $25 billion in any memo. And the point has been made that it has been mischievously manufactured. That's what we're saying. So to now, I don't think you can blame Dr. Kachiku Ibe for that.
Well, we are also like fall guys now, because a week ago, I already said it, because I took my time to read the response of the NNPC. In fact, the NNPC MD said it was erroneous to refer to the issue, to those agreements, as contract. You are taking it that it's laid to rest, but it does appear that there are some people who think this is just we are just trying to sweep this under the carpet.
Because they specifically called it the crude term contract, as well as the direct sale, direct purchase, DSDP agreement.
Exactly, yes. Now they use contracts and agreements, possibly interchangeably, but in the real sense of it, what Nigerians understand as contract is procurement.
Exactly.
I give you this job, you execute it, I pay you.
But
that is not what is at play.
No.
And that is not even what Kachiku pointed to.
This is
Kachiku, he summarized his argument in his memo, and he summarized it into 3 headings. Number 1, awarding jobs or giving out contracts without the concurrence of the board. Number 2, appointments without involving the board. And number 3, overbearing, which really is difficult to put a hand on. Because what he's saying is that it's even difficult for him as minister to get people in NNPC to report to him.
Okay.
And the truth is they shouldn't be reporting to the Minister of State.
Mr. Femi in Surulere, good morning, sir. And thank you for holding on.
Hello, good morning, Imakuyori and the other co-panelists.
Thank you very much.
Let me just go directly to what I want to say. That particular letter is drawing our attention to the fundamental problem that brought us to this level as a country. If you look at all the corruption cases we have in the country, you will find out that the due process was trampled upon. Almost all the corruption cases, we can see the issue of the ZNE moving $150 million from NNPC. Did that follow the normal due process? So when even the governors in the country, they are operating like emperors. Go and ask all their commissioners, they have no hold on their ministries. This thing started happening from 1978 upwards. Before, if you, as a civil servant, when you ask a civil servant to go against the GO or the financial instruction, it's just like asking him to commit hierarchy. But right from 78 upward, anybody, you can just give an instruction without any basis, and most of our appointees, they forget that they are representing us. They are supposed, the constitution is supposed to be their guide. Even today, if the president of Buhari tells somebody to go, that is what exactly happened in this armed deal. When the president asks you, go and do this, and when you know that this thing is against the rules, you have a right to say, no, I will not do it. But all of them, they become loyal to this thing. All the governments are operating like emperor. This man is trying to operate like an emperor there. Yeah. We are looking at the corruption cases. When we should go back and look at the root cause of that particular corruption, all right, which is something on the normal process that things you go. So if we allow this one to happen, it's not only this memo is not issue about the NNPC alone. It's about the country as a whole. We have to look at the way we do things and follow it right. And when people go against that right thing, they should be punished immediately. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Femi.
Honestly, I think the federal government, the presidency, is being tested with this case. And I want to say that the blame actually lies with the presidency in the way they have handled this.
For allowing it to fester.
For allowing it to fester. Look, all these contributions are not factual. They are sentimental. They're not factual. When the Minister of Health suspended the DG of the NHIS, National Health Insurance Scheme, the DG told the minister, you don't have such powers. The minister had to use force by asking the police to take over the NHIS office for that suspension order to take effect. Because procedurally, people think ministers are not chief executives. Ministers are servants. Minister means servant. They are servants they help the president to get jobs done. The Minister of Finance cannot query or fire the CBN governor. And so, if the president appoints, who appoints? The question is, which procedure has been flouted? So people are just reading, they are imputing meanings.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Nobody is able to say this particular procedure has been,
And I think that was the point that Femi, the last caller, sought clarification on in his commentary, saying, look, there are rules. No matter who you are, there are rules. And if rules are flouted, now what the rules are is probably, what we're talking about here. I tried the other time to look at it that, look, there are layers of authority. How do these layers of authority work? Yemi had helped out by saying that, it might not be as simplistic as you think, so that you can't be using words like query and insubordination, because it might be a bit obtuse. Well, not so much. Not even harsh. We're dealing with the head of one place, and we're dealing with a minister of state in another. But people are getting, well, Yemi said sentimental. I think the one thing that behoves us all is to at least try and be as factual as we can be, rather than sentimental. Let's see if Mr. Folabi in Ikeja, you want to join this conversation. Good morning, Mr. Folabi.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you for calling in. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, please, thank you for your program. I really appreciate it. I don't miss it every morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is the thing for me. I don't know how we analyze issue in this country. Please, I need to say something. I want to understand something. Who is the minister of petroleum? Is it not Buhari? Then the minister of state is Kachuku. I think this Kachuku memo to me, as far as I'm concerned, as if my brain is working properly, is relevant. If you are the minister of state, you are a bird. Don't call you are a butterfly. You should not call yourself a bird. The person whose responsibility to report, who's supposed to be reporting to be reported to, is the minister himself. Minister of state is more or less like a vice president or deputy who, by the means of want to satisfy the 36 states of Nigeria, you have to put Minister of State and blah, blah, blah. I understand what I'm saying. I don't know if you get my point. The point I'm trying to raise now is that President Buhari is the minister. So if President Buhari has not automatically relieved his power to Kachukwu to be the minister, why is Kachukwu saying that he is not being carried along? I don't even know who is Minister of State of Petroleum during the Zania. I don't even know. Because he was irrelevant.
There was none.
So, as far as I'm concerned, I think we are mixing things up. Maybe I don't understand. You can enlighten me.
All right,
My own point is that GMD is supposed to report to the minister, or is supposed to report to the Minister of State?
Okay, Mr. Falabi, thank you for calling in. Okay, well, your turn now. Interesting point that he makes, that this gentleman just made, that, you know, it's supposed to be to the minister.
It's supposed to be to the minister, and the senior minister is General Muhammad Buhari.
Well, okay, yes.
And that has been the case right from former President Olusegun Obasanjo. You see, this shows one thing come to the fore about the strategic nature, the importance of NNPC to our national development and what have you. You see, people, the president are much more at home with GMDs of NNPC than ministers, because the GMDs are like people on the field. You understand? You can get, you know, the objective information from them, because they are directly in charge of the administration of the energy sector. You understand? It's the same thing with president holding a meeting with chief of army staff or service chiefs. You understand? Nobody asks that why didn't Mr. President call the Minister of Defense to come and brief him? But in a lot of instances, you see president summoning the service chiefs directly. You understand? To come and brief him, because these guys are on the field, are directly in charge, are the commanders. The same thing applies to the GMD of NNPC.
Okay.
When Obasanjo,
Mr. Maxwell in Ghana, good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to
good morning,
the
sir.
gentleman with Chika.
Thank you for calling in.
good morning, Mr. President.
What I want to say as since this issue is concerned is I look at it, you know, judging from my own point of view and where I worked before. You see,
you have a military background.
The last time this issue came up here, I called in here. I told you that there was a breach of communication. That was what I said that day. There was a breach of communication. The president is the minister. He is holding fast to that portfolio, and he appoints somebody. Automatically, he has handed over some of his powers to a minister of state. Now, the GMD, who is he working under? Let's take in cognizance that maybe he has his own role according to the PPP. Also, what do you people call it? Public procurement, what there, that holds the NNPC. He has his own right. And I don't believe that Kachukwu, for me, in my own opinion, you know, from my own standpoint, I believe that the GMA, no matter what happens, has some sort of responsibility that he should accord to the Minister of State. I do not know if that is the right thing to do, but judging my own, where I belong to, it must be a chronicle of command. The man is up there, then GOCs cannot just move straight to the chief of commander-in-chief. They must pass through the chief of army staff. That is where you go through. It's a channel of command. But here, I do not know. Since President has given Kachukwu that ministerial appointment, the GMD must respect it.
Okay, then. Thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate your call. I've got to go to a break. We'll be right back, and then no more break till the end of the program. welcome back. It's getting more and more, well, I don't know, certainly interesting, if not more complex, because, I don't know, maybe somebody's going to have to help us out. Now, Mr. Maxwell, who called in, he shared with us before on the program that his background is military, and you can then see the structure of command that he was talking about. Even use some examples, GOCs, Commander-in-Chief. If you want to get to the Commander-in-Chief, you go through the Chief of Army Staff. I suppose it will apply differently in different circumstances. And in any case, this is not a military organization. This is a civil, political organization.
Even using the same military hierarchy, the military organization, he mentioned that the GOC cannot go to the president directly.
The Commander-in-Chief directly.
He has to go through the Chief of Army Staff, not even through the Minister of Defense. And so, you see, when this issue borders about governance, and with due respect, a lot of people who are contributing based on what they know. But there is so much more to know about how things work up there. Now, people have also not taken account of the fact that why did the Vice President not insist that those documents from NNPC should pass through the Minister of State for Petroleum before he signed them off? He has owned up that he signed them off. But a lot of people are in a hurry to nail the president. I must say this with all due sense of responsibility. People should have asked the questions, when did this happen? Was it when the president was away or while he was here? Now that the truth is coming out.
If I didn't hear somewhere along the line, you know, the story has so many contortions that at one point, the Vice President was said to have said, you know, go through the minister. I don't know if I'm not mixing up cases.
So if he did that, then what's the complaint about?
Okay. Mr. Additional in Ojo, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Uncle Yori, you see, when the issue of the leaked letter memo came up on air about 25 billion contracts awarded without following due process. And I also listened to the journalist hangout last week where Babajide queried the process that was not duly followed for the award of contract. Now the Vice President is coming on here now to tell us that there was nothing of such contract happened. But I want to tell you, Uncle Yori, that it is high time we do away with speculations in our journalism. You see, politics is playing all the way. For me, for even Kashuki not even granting the press interview to tell us the details between what is happening between him and Baru, it tells us that he should be, both of them should be sacked. And I expect the president now to stand his ground that for if they have breached any civil service rules in regards to the way they function or information leaked without following due process, then you should take the book by the horn to ensure that anyone found wanting should be sacked.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Additional. Thank you very much for calling in. Certainly, it looks like the spokesperson for the Vice President sought to do was to clarify the waters, but these waters are just getting muddier and muddier because people are, the sentiment is involved, you know. Again, the analogies we're getting, Mr. Maxwell's analogy on the one hand, somebody else saying that, look, there are rules. Why won't people just play by the rules, whatever they are? Now over to you, Hassan.
You know what? You see, it's an open secret that primordial sentiment is an impediment to objectivity.
Is that at play here?
Let me tell you what you don't know. People appeal to sentiments to drive home their points, to drive home their parochial and selfish interests.
On both sides?
No.
On all sides.
On all sides. On all sides.
On all sides.
On all sides.
I think on all sides. Let me quickly bring in Yakub. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jerry.
Okay then.
And then good morning to Mr. Hassan and the other gentleman in the studio.
Good morning, Mr. Yakub.
And we are treating this case now, almost 2 weeks now. I think the 50 office has not cleared the way for us now to know what is going on. But Shivani, there's something we seem to forget about. See, the minister wrote this memo or letter, as they have sought to say. The question now is that we forgot to ask one question in this case. is that who leaked this letter? That is one question that people forget to ask. Yes, if you try to leak, because if this letter was not leaked, I don't think that there is a way for us to be discussing this thing for almost 2 or 3 weeks now. That is number one. Because if a letter made for a Mr. President secretly to discuss with his minister, and then somebody somewhere leaked the letter to the public, and then nothing happened to that very particular person. That is number one. Number two, let me tell you this. The people in the Mr. President's cabinet are so powerful. Why is it that now the chief of staff to Mr. President is the board? Are you getting it now? And then the question is that, does it mean that it's right to be in that board? We should raise such questions.
Okay, then, Mr. Yakub. Yakub, thank you very much for calling in. Indeed, this is trying to go back to some of those substantial issues before this giant of a red herring, this $25 billion giant of a red herring has now come, you know, quite frankly, taking over the whole horizon. But the main issues, those are not yet being spoken on. Yakub just threw up another one.
Yes, that people around Mr. President. It is high time Mr. President relax the protocols around himself, because they are becoming overbearing on him. People knows him to be a man of principle, a man of integrity. But people around him should relax the protocol and allow the ministers to have access to Mr. President at any point in time.
Yeah, but I said that last week, sometime last week.
You said it. I'm saying it now.
Yes, because what we're saying is that, look, these people are holding office only at the pleasure of the president.
No,
he is aware of these perceptions, I would imagine. And anyone that is running foul of who he is, in other words, anyone misrepresenting him, I would imagine he would not bat an eyelid
I see no reason why people around Mr. President should determine who sees the president among the ministers. I don't. It's not right. It's not right. It's not good.
Chiefs of staff are chiefs of staff.
No matter the chief of staff, but these guys are ministers, for God's sake.
Excuse me.
Nevertheless,
as a minister,
yes,
if you have the opportunity of not just seeing the president once a week, but seeing him in council, what more, opportunity do you want to drive home your point? The Federal Executive Council is not at the whims and caprices of the president. It is a constitutional organ that runs the executive of the federal government of Nigeria, the executive arm. And so, whether it's General Buhari, President Buhari that is presiding, or an acting president that is presiding, that council is where a whole lot of these issues can be treasured. People should also ask another question.
We've run out of time, but I wonder if you think the president himself needs to actually, just take a decisive stance, if it can be helpful.
It depends on what we term. To some, decisive means sack Baru. To others, it is sack Kachuku. To others, sack the two of them. But then the president has something to deliver. If these are the guys that he counts on to deliver them, he cannot, on the basis of this isolated issue, throw them out.
Okay, I guess we're going to have to leave it there because we've completely run out of time now. Alhaji Sani, I have to apologize because I know there's plenty more that you need to say. But I'm sure you have put it in the very valuable time that we've had together. Thank you very much, Hassan Abdulaziz Sani, Senior Mold and Communications Professional. And to you, Mr. Yemi Makpade, Strategy and Governance Expert. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
So that's our program. We'll do it again tomorrow, God willing, from 10:30 in the morning. I'm Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.